Great, so we are streaming and recording, so we can go ahead and get started.
I will swear you in first. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Lovely. I'll get to you in a little while. I think I'm gonna need to swear you in, Alex.
Do we want to say what the date is for the
Oh,
record
sure.
of our next meeting?
Welcome to the May 25th installment of UIDRB. The next meeting is June 22nd. Same place, same time, next month.
And then I'll quickly go through the roll call. Ms. Gunzelman? Here. Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Reeds?
Here.
Mr. Sublette?
Here.
And Mr. Szymanski? Thank you. Mr. Fleming and Ms. Parker are not here. Okay. And then, so are we ready, Carrie, for the zoning code update?
We are.
Hello?
Do this thing. Sit down the hot seat here for a second. Hello, everyone. How are we doing this evening? Or this afternoon, I guess. I'm jumping ahead of myself. My name is Alex Sauersmith. I am a planning manager with the Department of Development Planning Division. Work with these lovely folks over here. And I'm here just to give you a quick update about the zoning code update. And you have the materials in front of you as well. The booklet has a decent amount of information in there, a lot of the same information we found on the website, which you can reach with the URL or the QR code that you have in front of you. So with that, the city and region, as we know, are growing. We are working to prepare for the challenges and opportunities ahead, addressing in many different forms and fashions with things like the affordable housing strategy, Link Us, Sustainable Columbus, and of course this effort Zone In. The reason why we're engaging this, as many of you are probably well aware, we have not updated our zoning code in over 70 years comprehensively. We've had different small updates here and there, but we haven't done this for quite a while. And now we have the support of both council and the mayor's office to update the zoning code. We are starting our process to modernize the zoning code on our corridors. You will find the online or digital map on the website where you can find exactly what we're talking about with those corridors. But there's over 62 of them that we've selected. It doesn't include every corridor, doesn't include every commercial area, but those areas will be addressed later on in the process. We're just really looking to see which areas, I'm just looking to start with which areas have the greatest capacity to meet the needs of the community, the various needs of the community that aren't currently being met under the current zoning code. The corridors, as we know, also have the capacity for thoughtful, equitable growth, but with the current zoning, it's not delivering those aspects as well as we'd like to see that. There's about 145 miles that we've identified of corridors. Out of that, 80% of the properties facing the street are currently zoned with a 35-foot height limit, which is the same height limit that you'll find in residential areas with single-family homes. Really constrains what folks can do on those parcels due to that. Additionally, 80% of those of the identified area, housing is not permitted on the ground floor or permitted at all in a time where we greatly need to expand our housing units. Another fun fact is there's 1,000 variances of the 11,500 parcels. So around 8% of those parcels have variances just to exist as they do today. And of course, that's inhibiting the housing creation that we greatly need, and also all the services that we could potentially provide in those areas. So how did we identify those areas? We overlaid multiple criteria, including the existing zoning in place, of course. We looked at the current code of bus routes, and then the future Link Us corridors were a big focus of this as well. And then we have site-specific considerations for areas like Eastland Mall, the Ohio State University area. Ohio State University campus. So where we at in the process, you can learn more again by visiting that website. The map will show you all those areas that I mentioned before. We really need your help and people that you know to come out and participate in these events. We had scheduled an event, I believe it was for tonight in Linden, decided to cancel that event because we have not had great attendance at these events so far. However, there is one more next Thursday, I believe, June 1st, that'll be at Schiller Park Community Center. We are still holding that one, and please come out to that. We're looking at how we could better engage with folks and get more people out, more engagement around the effort. One of those ways are these 4 workshops that we have coming in July and August, to be determined with the dates. But we were looking for those to be a little more in depth, a little more of an opportunity for people to express their opinions, share their thoughts on what we have in front of us. And I think that's generally it. You join the email list if you haven't already. Please stay in tune with it, and again, spread the word. We really want to try to reach folks that normally aren't reached in this process. It's a hard thing to do, easy thing to say. So with that, I'll take any questions at your discretion.
Yeah, thank you for coming today.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more what to expect at one of the meetings, and what's the outcome of a meeting? Like, what do you, as those driving this, plan to take away from the meeting?
So, lots of visual representations of what we're doing here. I believe soon we'll be starting to introduce place types and what those things will look like as well. And just different stations, what they've had so far. I don't know about the workshops, exactly how those are going to be organized with different stations, what we've done so far, where people can go visit, get more information and provide input on that. And what, the general ways that we'd like to have as much diverse input as we can, to try to create a zoning code that meets more needs than what our current zoning code does.
So is the input qualitative or quantitative?
I'm doing both.
Because I'm imagining if I'm going to say to my neighbors, hey, you guys, you really need to go down to this. Like, what would be the thing that would be my voice of encouragement to say, they would need to hear from you. They're going to ask you for the following. You're going to write things. You're going to stand up and speak. You're going to work in a small group, and you're going to produce information of some sort. And then when are they going to hear back from what they contributed?
Yeah, they haven't necessarily informed me on when they're going to follow back with folks. I think they're going to really rely on the website to do that, and people to be engaged on the email list and to share that information that way. I hope that we see a little more with social media and different aspects that you see other arms of the city government using, how city council communicates through newsletters and then social media, how the mayor's office does the same. I think it'd be good to see a little bit more of that as well. Just stressing the importance of that this is a, kind of a once in a lifetime deal. None of us will likely be around when we update the zoning code comprehensively again.
I hope to be here 17 years from now, but you
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
No, but I get your point. I mean, the fact that it's taken this long. So somebody might say, well, because it hasn't needed to change, it's so good. And I'll come back and say, oh no, Columbus is growing. We've got a lot of issues. But it would help me to be able to do the pitch.
Yeah,
If I could more clearly articulate beyond message
sure.
with what is it that the city of Columbus needs to do and is looking to do with a new zoning code. What are we trying to do?
What are we trying to do to, provide more opportunities for more diverse development, to provide opportunities for a more diverse range of housing that meets the needs of various income levels in different communities. So we have those communities that are concentrated one way or another on the economic scale in order to create kind of local microeconomies that are more self-sustaining within that area. Also thinking about how.
So that suggests land use changes in part. And how about density and parking?
What's that? So.
Okay, so land use, I can understand from what you originally presented, land use changes. So there are places that maybe currently aren't effective for multi-use housing.
Mhm.
Or multi-populated housing, and we want to get more territory within the city that can be developed as mixed-use housing or a diverse community of housing there. So raising the density, is that one of the things that we want to see happen?
There'll be some areas that will see, an increase in densities, but not only talking about mixed use and larger developments that usually are what people think about when they think about density, but also, making people aware of how, essentially missing middle housing duplexes, triplexes, et cetera, how those can be integrated in some of our current communities to provide more opportunities, again, for more people to live within communities and not have that kind of, density that intimidates folks as well. And also showing examples of density along corridors.
Right.
Some things are quite dense that you wouldn't think are quite dense. You have a small parcel and maybe even a few story building, 2-3 story building, you could be mixed use, could have been built many, many years ago, and how that can carry a great bit of density with it. It doesn't have to be a giant skyscraper, something that's going to overshadow the community.
I really support getting people out. It's so important. And I'm thinking of it as when I get my neighbors to come, they're going to learn a lot and feel more engaged in their community by believing that their voice is heard. A lot of cynicism, they don't think their voice is going to be heard. So I'm going to encourage them to say, oh, yes, this is a big opportunity to be heard.
It is indeed, yeah.
But the more we can offer insights about the potential positive outcome that will then come back to them, I think the more likely it is to get them to show up.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that economic diversity that development can bring when you have different levels is a really important point, to have a wider variety of services and accessibility to goods and things within your own neighborhood. So you don't have to travel far, contributing to our local economy, contributing to their property values, and how those look in the future, because it's a lot of ways. It's a huge way that many of us build our wealth is through our real estate ownership. Those of us who are lucky enough to own real estate, that's a way that we build our wealth. And participate in something like this is not only for people that own, people that don't own as well, to voice their opinion, their perspective, so that they may have more opportunities to become homeowners and have a greater share of the wealth that they can pass down through generations.
In terms of getting the word out, just a couple questions about what we should tell people to expect. One in terms of time commitment, and the other, will they be doing more talking or more listening?
I'd say it's a fairly good mix. Have you been focused to one of these? How'd you feel like what the mix was as far as?
Half and half. So there's two parts to it. The first part is, so the community conversations are themed. There's one themed about housing, there's one themed about mixed use development along corridors, and there's one that's themed about just development, I think, in general. And I've been to a few, but the first part is you'll have some sort of presentation surrounding that theme. So if it's housing, importance of housing, and what are the hindrances now and what are we looking to address and why is that important? And then after that, there's sort of small breakouts. So if you're sitting at a table, you'll talk with your table mates. There are facilitators walking around, and you'll talk about housing and the presentation, what your thoughts are. There's generally like a sticky pad or some sort of writing situation, and you can write down your feedback. It's generally qualitative. And then there's also several boards, so as you're checking in and registering, you can put a pin on, this is where I live, and where would you like to see more housing? You put a pin there, and then they use those pins, like how many pins were there for a pin. That might be the more commentative aspect of it.
And that's what the current community conversations, I mentioned the one that'll be next week, that's how it's going to be formatted. They haven't really, these workshops, the way I foresee those, and I'm not, 100% set, they haven't shared the details with us yet, but I see those as being the deeper dive, less us talking to people, more listening to people participating in different group activities and sharing with each other within groups as well. That's the most important part. I mean, I haven't been to these events because I've been going around to area commissions doing this bit. I try to keep it pretty short, so that I can get the questions from folks, because I think that's the most important part, to listen. I mean, that is equitable engagement, is simply listening to folks. It's a big aspect of that. So I would hope to see that more with these future workshops that come.
And I think they've been like an hour and a half. So
Yeah,
like
hour and a
6 to
half.
7 or 6 to 7:30.
How far out are they scheduled?
The only one we have solid is that one next week. Again, these workshops they have not got any solid dates on what's is coming up here pretty soon in July and August. So I'd expect that we would hear something soon about those dates and times. And I would expect it to be around the same, like an hour and a half. I highly doubt it would go 2 hours, but Potentially, unless it's more of like a charrette style thing where people can kind of come in and out of the space that they're in. So more to come on that.
Any other questions for Alex?
I was just gonna say, not that it's an appropriate place to do your workshop, but at least in terms of getting the word out in Linden, if you have the opportunity, I don't know if they have it this summer, but they used to have a Jazz in Maloney Park in July, like every Saturday night, free jazz concerts.
Yeah.
And they have a sidewalk that connects where the stage is, the pavilion and the parking lot, and then nonprofits and other people kind of line that walk. So that's a great way to make people aware.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any way to incentivize them showing up for the meeting, would also be beneficial. So
Yes, thank
This
you
is
for
such a
mentioning that.
Great idea, and I'm thinking, arts, jazz festival, like, if you can have a booth. And because you're teaching people a lot of important stuff that most of us as citizens aren't fully aware of. And, and the takeaway card is good, people may or may not look up
Sure.
the Q code, but anything that you can have that's boldly bringing people's attention to what the main issues are. I
Mhm.
mean, I'd like every one of them to sit down for an hour with Michael Wilkos. He's almost everywhere, but most people don't really understand what the issues are.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of education that needs to be done
Yeah.
before people can really intelligently and productively engage. Going to where people are at is the way to do it. There is jazz in the
The
park.
thing though is to go where they don't belong, they're already out.
Yeah, and there is jazz in the park this year in July, but
Yes.
that's before, I was already planning on going to sort of planning division work. But, bringing zone in.
So
an aspect
the other thing you
as
should
well.
do, Alex, is talk to either Patrice or
Lena?
we did these giveaways, swag for Department of Neighborhoods. And there's three of them, and they're not really that, but they're wildly popular. So if you have a way of branding some swag to give people at like Maloney, that's a really good way to, as a reminder.
Yep.
So,
Yep, I like that too. Yeah, Delina's concentrating
Okay,
on that area.
good.
She's both the community liaison and the planner for the One Linden plan
Okay.
right now. So she's taken up to heavily involved. And Miss Peg has been talking about every Saturday in July this year, they're gonna bring that back
that's awesome.
every Saturday. So definitely plan on being.
I think it was there 3 times that one summer. They had some really good
They have
videos.
some good music,
They do.
good turnouts. Again, going to where people are, I think is extremely important. It's great to have these meetings, these opportunities for people to come to a meeting.
Yeah.
But as we see, not a lot of people come to meetings unless they have to.
Brings them in, I Fred Bradley's fan club this night, because usually there's a long line out the door just to hear him present, so,
I should probably sleep.
but unless everybody's golfing.
I've heard of it. It's very good, yes. But yes, thank you. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Yep.
Good luck.
Yes.
What's your favorite swag?
Yeah.
Lanyards?
I think the big flip things were really, really popular. The chip bag or whatever, and they have a magnet on. Yeah.
I got a bunch of those.
And I think the winter thing that was super popular was we had a beanie, not a beanie, a stocking cap. Those were, yeah, those were immensely popular, and gloves. It had a One Linden, I think there were One Linden.
Very expensive.
Some of it was, some of it, then we had to really be careful.
Gloves.
Yeah, but you couldn't take everything, it's like you get to pick. So,
Maybe thinking about doing for a different piece of what we do now with this, doing one of our staff members who's taught Spanish in the past at Ohio State, he had a Jeopardy game, PowerPoint game. You're thinking about engaging people with that or other things, just little things and having a swag. I mean, it seems silly, but it.
did you
does
see
go
the
great
Hilltop and
to
One Linden, what's the thing called where you take a marble and you drop it in the top and it goes?
Like a Rube Goldberg.
I'm Price is Right, it was Plinko.
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 We did a One Linden Plinko board that turned out really awesome. So for future planning efforts, if you can figure out, it really turned out pretty cool. I think they still have, we gave them both to the city, so
Okay.
hopefully they still exist.
Dig it out.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Which brings us to
Next,
UID 2304-007A.
I think the minutes.
Oh, I forgot. We're bouncing all over the place.
Okay.
So did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes from last month's meeting?
Make a motion that we approve them.
I'll second that.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Gunzelman?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Parker is not here. Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Supla?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Abstain.
Thank you. And that passes. Okay.
Can I announce now?
Yes.
Our one and only case, UID 2304-007A and UID 2304-007B.
Yep, so
Welcome.
on 122 Westland Avenue is a parcel that contains an existing residential structure with a parking lot to the west, and the owner is working through splitting the parcel in two. Today, the applicant is seeking a conceptual feedback on variances and design to construct a new 3-unit, 12-bedroom apartment building with an FAR of 0.82 on the parking lot portion of the existing property. The building will be 3 stories, about 32 feet tall, with porches for each unit, landscaping, and some green space with 8 stacked parking spaces in the rear at a rate of 0.66 spaces per bed. And proposed materials include fiber cement lap siding and double hung windows. And the conceptual variances include, for lot coverage, they're proposing 39.5% instead of the standard of 30%. For parking, they're proposing 8 spaces instead of 14. For FAR, they're proposing 0.82 instead of 0.6, which is the max standard. For height, they're proposing 35 feet with 6 inches instead of the average of 26 feet. And then for side yards, they're proposing 3 feet in lieu of the 5.4 feet minimum. The applicant last came before the board in April of 2023, where the board appreciated the composition and proportions of the proposal. The board recommended using an alternative material to make this, additional landscaping, revisit the spacing of the windows, revisiting the cornice articulation, and add additional paved pathways in the rear to prevent any maintenance issues with the lawn. And in response to board feedback, the applicant removed the ephes and used fiber cement lap siding, added landscaping in front of the porches and a shade tree, and updated the window fenestration on the south, east, and north elevations. And with this one, we have the variance listing, site plan, floor plans, elevation, streetscape elevation, window details, and color sections. And they're very similar to last month, so I'll have Bradley go over them. But after review, the proposal is generally consistent with the University District Plan. The plan recommends this site for higher intensity residential uses, which calls for a maximum FAR of 0.6, height of 45 feet, parking at a rate of 0.75 spaces per bed, and a minimum of 8% of the total lot area to be preserved as landscaped open space behind the principal structure. Furthermore, the plan recommends that the overall depth of the building should be no more than 2.5 times the building's overall width, that primary facade address the primary street and have a high level of design, and that the scale of new buildings, windows, and doors be influenced by the surrounding contributing residential buildings. Lastly, the plan calls for porches or stoops on front entrances, that landscaping and street trees be included, and that parking be located to the rear. As such, staff generally supports the conceptual proposal's variances and design. Staff notes that although the length of the structure is slightly more than 2.5 times the width, and the proposed FAR is 0.82, staff does recognize that the length and massing is appropriate and comparable to the lengths and massing of adjacent structures. And as the proposal develops, staff recommends that the applicant include exterior lighting that minimizes light spill. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you're going to want to say something, Bradley. So do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thanks, Belkis. I think that was pretty comprehensive. Last month, there were really good comments and feedback about some of the proportions and detailing with window sizes, with the wall cap and trim work. So I went through and revisited the materiality of it and the detailing along the parapet, reworked the trim work to make it more cohesive throughout the building. Last time it was a little disjointed, so I think it's greatly improved in my opinion. Added landscaping per Carrie's comments, reworked the ground floor window, which I think might have been Lori's comment. But overall, the building massing, scale, proportions and everything are relatively the same as last time with a few minor tweaks here and there.
Like, can you remind me what's in the extended vertical that looks like clear windows, but it's not?
That's just trim work and panel.
But what's the reason that that space has a higher balustrade or cornice than the adjacent component?
So my original design had it all at the same level, but it was kind of boring. So that's why I created when you look at plan, there's some undulation as far as the footprint of each unit as well as the heights.
So you're saying there's nothing in that space?
It's a parapet, so
Okay,
it's
it's a
just roof
parapet.
behind us, yes.
So it's not sloping behind, it's literally just, it's a parapet.
It's a parapet, yeah.
And is it covering mechanicals?
Yes.
It's covering mechanicals?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what it's doing.
And I have the parapet returning back 4 feet onto the roof, so it's not just a false
An edge.
looking thing, yeah.
Can you go back one, Bogus? What is on the far right, the gray, what is the material on that? Because I see that it's clapboard. Was it just not rendered out or is it?
That's the porch beyond. It's further away.
No. The larger gray mass on the far right, that structure there, I can't see.
It's all siding.
Okay, it's all horizontal side, okay.
Yeah, I looked at doing board and batten, but those are limited to 12-foot lengths. And to get that break to make sense with where the windows and floor lines are located, it just,
Gonna look wonky.
it was really weird.
Okay.
Can you tell us about the color choices?
Not sure how to answer that question. Yeah, if the owner had their way, it'd be all the same color. Wanted to have a little bit of variation to match the massing and to break up the facade a little.
What more can you tell us about your color choices? Come on, Bradley, you're a designer.
I don't know, I
So you
stuck
can
at colors, I
You
don't
could
know.
speak color. Can speak color. The material, it's simply painted, right? All the
Yes.
materials are painted.
Mhm.
So you have a lot of choices. Okay.
I'm not sure how to answer. I think I picked colors from the same family from Sherwin-Williams and I like the way that it looks.
Okay, that's an answer. I don't like the way that it looks. And I'm trying to figure out what to suggest. For one thing, just in terms of a neutral palette, like you're trying to stay super neutral. And I assume that that's a dialogue with you and your client from the comment that you made. But in the neutrality of it, you start trying to stay the same palette, but the sand-like color is a different, slightly different warm base than the much cooler gray color. And in my read of them, they don't work very well together. So I'm wondering if either the cooler gets warmer or the warmer gets cooler by staying within the realm of your thinking, which is that primarily neutral colors. I'm also curious about the trim that's closer to a charcoal gray black. And I'm trying to imagine what that trim would look like if it wasn't as sharp a contrast. So where the trim on the sand colored building is either white or off-white against the lighter tone, have you played with things like some reversal, like a slightly darker but still off-white trim on the sand color and then a brighter whitish color against the gray, so that you start to play back and forth. Right now, I find it's not only kind of dark and dismal because there's no dynamic chroma, but within that realm, we call them the saturated colors. They're as far as you can get from the brightest part of the chroma, adding contrast, adding the complement to get them desaturated, which is working toward gray, right? So they're both sort of like work toward gray. But in that, somehow for me, they don't marry well. They don't work well together. So I'm trying to figure out how to help you look at other neutral-ish tones or other gray tones, but maybe to do a little bit more experimentation with both the combination of trim to base color and the two primary base colors that you're using. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense.
And again, it's super subjective, so it's fine to say, I kind of like this, and I can say, I kind of don't like it, but maybe there's some other things you try. So if, if your client loves this, it makes me wonder about Jack Peatley, about whom I've also wondered quite a lot with a lot of his other works. I'm not surprised. But I mean, again, you can do, 8 variations on the theme and ask all of the designers in your office to offer opinions. And, it's just colors like anything else in design. You have to try a lot of stuff to come up with something wonderful. And if you would have told me that this was, the 100th study that your office had done, and this is the best you could do, I'd probably send you back to color theory. But I doubt if that's, you've done everything else. So probably the focus hasn't been. And if it is, as Carrie got to clarification, the material is all basically the same striated, delineated material that you're going to paint anyway. You have so much design opportunity and flexibility.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that does.
So my fellow board members can say I'm crazy and they love the colors. Because it is subjective.
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, I was looking at the windows specifically, black windows everywhere, right?
Mhm.
So, just with the black windows on the warmer color scheme, it's a heavy contrast. I mean, black trim, I love the idea of black trim. I use it a lot. It's kind of a sort of a differentiator, as opposed to the white, which most everyone uses. But I don't disagree. I think there is a warm color palette that's being used in a neutral sort of, the colors of the Dorian gray and the Ibis white. And then you contrast it with the cool, and because it's sort of a grouping of, units, if there was a way that you could marry those two a little bit better color-wise, I think it would go a long way. I love black windows, but this might not be the right application for it. I'm struggling a little bit with the black. If there was a way to get the black to work with the, sort of the, taupe colors, we'll call it, I guess I'd be a little bit more on board, but right now it's not, married well, I'd say. I also look at the porch and I really want to love the porch and it's all white. And then I'm wondering why, because it doesn't kind of match the rest of it seems like just put a little bit more energy in the porch. It's where people come to, and to me, it just needs to be celebrated just a bit more than it is.
Is one of the issues possibly a need to kind of tone down the contrast?
Yeah, I think
Keep
that's
the
a lot of
variety,
it.
but
Yeah,
tone down the contrast. And your point about the two colors seemingly not to have the same base, I think, is really good insight.
and Brady, I really do like the project. And I appreciate the fact that you took the time to engage some of our comments from last time and incorporate them into your concepts.
I have a question about the windows. I don't know if this is a cloth issue or just you don't like the way they look. Did you consider doing like a 2/1 or 3/1? Not a true divided light situation, obviously, but just having vertical.
No. I
It's
haven't
fine.
considered that.
I just love the way they look as a rule.
Yeah.
I think it's just one more layer of detail, but from a curb appeal standpoint, I just think it makes windows a little bit more interesting than just clear glass on the top and bottom.
I could just say, from a cost of perspective, if you get rid of black windows, they're probably about 30% more, 20 to 30% more. So if you're going, black windows are probably 20 to 30% more than a white window.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you were looking at going to a white window for some of the comment and doing divided light, there's a way to kind of offset some of that cost to get a look.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not necessarily suggesting you should do that. I just, if you
It's
consider it.
worthwhile looking into, sure.
What windows are you looking at? Have you picked a manufacturer or anything?
Yeah,
Let's see.
it's on the last page. North Star Vinyl. But that's the same one that we used around the corner on Hunter. Turned out pretty nice.
I also want to echo what Laura said. I like the units. I think the plan organization they're 3-story, right? So each 3 stories, they work well. And that makes me inclined to support each of the variance questions. I mean, we have to go through all of them, but as I listed them, parking, yes, extra height, yes. Larger lot coverage, yes, smaller side, because it looks to me, should look here with the site plan, but I thought of that when I was looking at your site plan. It seems to me that can work very well. As long as you've got lighting for that side entry along the narrow access way. For me, the zoning questions are not difficult. Do you want to go to the site plan?
Yeah.
So by reducing the usual site setback, because the adjacent building is following that setback, you've got, what's the widest and narrowest dimension between buildings?
Between buildings, I don't know offhand. To the property line though, it's a little over 3 feet.
Looks like the nearest to the north property line is 3 feet. I believe it's only 4 feet at the, I guess that would be south.
Yeah,
And it's
corner-
narrowest adjacent to the building that has the least depth. So once you get back past that building, it's open to the, I don't know if this is north up, is this north up?
north to the right.
North is to the right? North is to the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So on the east side, it's open, whereas the building that your new introduction is almost the same dimension as, it's slightly wider in that area. And that's where you're putting your heat pumps. Our heat pumps are in different locations, and you've got mechanical.
Yeah, each unit has 2 air handlers.
Oh, each unit has 2 condensers,
This one.
one for the upper floor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the site plan, and so given those variances that you're looking for, I would support them. And you're planning to plant the trees that you show. Only one is on your property, right?
Correct.
It's only the tree in front. Any other trees are existing that you know?
Yep.
What do you think about the site?
I don't know, I would just make sure that it looks like that's not a 3-foot sidewalk to the unit. I'd just make sure that that will work acceptable, because that would affect your setback if,
Yeah.
because that is an entrance to the building, of whether a 4-foot sidewalk would be required. So I
With,
don't know if a 4-foot, like a 3-foot's a pretty narrow sidewalk entrance, if that's what I'm, because you're 4-foot setback, and
Mhm.
if a 3-foot's fine, I don't care.
Fine.
It's pretty narrow, and so.
okay.
Other comments?
The only other thing, and I know I talked about this last time, and I have mixed feelings about it. I think it does work. I don't really like the way it looks in the plan, but you might consider it back, since I assume not that many people are going to be coming from the front and then walking around the east side of the house to the middle or the back, right? They're probably coming from the back. So I would consider, back to my muddy landscape area, consider chamfering those 2 walks. So if you put a small chamfer here, you put a small chamfer there, because people just, they want to cut the corner and you end up with just mud. So
Or make it more organic and less rectilinear.
Right.
I mean, it could be radius too.
Yeah, I think radius might work better. My dog would totally cut that.
Teach us a lot, folks, right?
Always looks good on paper.
Rather, do you have what you need?
I think so. So our plan is to go in front of the UAC before I come back here. So next month, I'm hoping to get design approval and variance endorsement.
Great.
Are you coming into for the June UAC meeting?
I'm sorry?
Are you coming in for the next UAC?
Yes. Yeah, we missed the May cutoff one since the first was a Monday. Or the second one was, or second was a Monday.
The deadline's the Monday after Memorial Day.
Okay. Yeah, we missed the cutoff for the May one to get with the zoning committee. So that's why we're waiting until next month. Thank you.
Be in touch.
Thank you.
It's friendly.
And I think you just have the staff approved.
Yes, anything interesting on that front?
Yeah, three, two graphics, and then one roof replacement. They're very straightforward.
Motion to approve. We approve, staff approved groups.
I second.
Ms. Councilman,
Yes.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Dublin.
Yes.
Mr. Semansky.
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
I have a question. We approved some work for a couple that own a house on, Norwich. Norwich near the intersection of just north of Lane. It's a house that has, blue vinyl siding.
Okay.
And it's really, really bad. I haven't 311 but I walked by the other day and the front door, it has no windows. Remember that weird front window thing, no windows? And the front door was open. And you could see inside, framing
Oh, okay.
inside, but it looks like no one's touched it.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Do you remember the one I'm talking about? I've got pictures when I was walking by.
Okay.
It's not the corner house, it's adjacent to it to the west. On Norwich. Hello? No,
Is it on Norwich? Or is it on?
Norwich, because Norwich.
Faces Norwich.
Faces north,
Okay.
on Norwich, on the south side
Okay.
of Norwich, Norwich and
Yeah.
all that.
Okay. I'll look into it if you are able to shoot me and
Yeah.
out the address, that's helpful, but
Yeah.
I guess I don't mind it. And I can
One that
look
wanted
into
that
it.
leasing sign or whatever.
Exactly.
It's good.
Can't remember the name.
Are
There are
we
issues on
sure?
the side there, students. Yeah.
But these are ours to.
Yeah, those are yours.
To share with the neighbors.
Chair, are we adjourned?
I think we shall.